then just a little bit about this Caregiver Speaker Series. It's a monthly gathering dedicated to caregivers of people living with an acquired brain injury and also sometimes survivors of injury joining us like we have tonight. Each session will feature guest speakers who are experts in a specific aspect of brain injury care and rehabilitation and offering valuable insights and practical advice. So topics will vary each month. We will cover such areas such as medical care, emotional support, rehabilitation techniques, adaptive living strategies, nutrition, wellness, disability legal issues, and more. So it's an array of topics. So I think we can go ahead, Jackie, now and have you pop in and share a little bit about yourself and
Sure,
your practice and your website.
sure thing. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. I've been here since we've been hosting the Caregiver series. It's been great so far. We've had some good turnout. So thanks everybody for joining again, and welcome to new members. So I'm Jackie. Sorry if this is a repeat if you know me already. But I'm just going to share a little bit about myself. I've been an OT for about 10 years now. I specialize in acquired brain injury along my journey. Patricia just said a comment earlier before we hopped on that what did you say, Patricia? You said if you've seen one brain injury, you've
You've
seen
seen
one.
one.
You've seen one. And that's what fascinated me about brain injury recovery in general is that it's always changing. Everybody's different. So that's why I specialized in brain injury recovery. But as I was in my years at the hospital within the hospital system, I obviously noticed some red tape and boundaries. A lot of my clients and patients, when they left, I stayed in touch with them and they just completely lacked therapy resources, had no access to care. So that's why I decided to start my private practice to try to fill that gap a little bit. And so my private practice is primarily in the Bay Area, which is how I got connected with the lovely Sherry Center. But I am going to be moving soon to the New York, New Jersey area. However, I still have, well, my husband and I want to move so we could be closer to family. But I still have a lot of colleagues that work for the private practice in the Bay Area. So if you do live in the Bay and you want OT services, you can still feel free to reach out to me. Um, but another thing that I had developed is the online community, the Holistic Life Skills community. That's for people who can't see me privately in the Bay, and anybody in the world can actually have access to therapy resources. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen and just show you what's up and coming in the community in the next week or so. And if we have time at the end, then I'll share a presentation for you if there's time or some little tips and tricks. But I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Can everybody see it okay? So, okay. So I just want to let you know that this past month in October and November, I'm hosting some live events where I'm hopping on live for a Q&A on all daily living skills. So the clients can go to inside the community, they can go to the event hub section, and you'll see some upcoming live events where you can RSVP and then find the Zoom link to join the meeting. So this one is going to be tomorrow where
Jackie, hello. Oh boy. Well, she's either really good at just pausing and holding still, or
I think she froze.
or she or Chris is right. She froze. Okay, Jackie. Well, let's see. Um, Tomorrow, it looks like she has something going on tomorrow. Her This website is really wonderful, and Shuri Center has partnered with Jackie. We actually have we pay a fee every month to Jackie's organization so that Shuri Center, our community, can join that website for free. So the link is in the chat right now, and you can click on it now so you can at least open it on your screen and go to it after the event. And you could just sign up and you'll be able to access everything she does for free. And she has videos on OT strategy. She has guest speakers. She has materials. It's a really nice and and continually growing and building at websites with a lot of strategies and tips. So that's a really great opportunity to have that access for free. And and then I also just wanted to say for our other guests on right now, if you type yes in the webinar chat, we can bring you on screen if you would like that, like we have Marcia right now. And if you want to stay off screen and just watch us yak at you for a little bit, then don't type yes in the chat. Okay, so Jackie, you're back.
I'm sorry, it just booted me off.
It did. I was like, bye bye, Jackie, you're done. It's like
You're
the
done
hook
for now.
coming and pulling you off. But I did finish telling everybody about your site and that we have the link already there. And you were saying, who do you have coming on tomorrow?
So tomorrow is going to be a live Q&A with me where you can share your own personal situation when it comes to bathing skills. So I can help you provide some guidance to improving skills in that area. But each week we cover a different topic that I'm live for. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to have somebody come on to talk about SciFit, which is like a gym kind of environment that specializes in neuro rehab, and they have locations in a couple different states. So in about 2 weeks, they're going to be coming on to share what they do and give a tour of the equipment, and so stay tuned for that as well.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that is awesome. Well, thank you, Jackie. So good to.
Sorry about that.
It happens. You know, it's the way we are now. It's electronic. It doesn't always work. Kind of like yes. So it doesn't always work. Okay, so I'm just going to share a little bit about Shurig Center very quickly because we want to get to Kalynn. I just want to share for people who are new to us or don't know about Shurig Center fully. It's an organization that's turning 40 in 2025. We're at 40 years old, which is amazing. We're honored to be. I would like to be turning 40, actually, but the organization is. We have an array of classes and groups for people who have experienced a brain injury. We offer education and support groups for caregivers to get information and support. And we also have community resource assistance for survivors, caregivers, and professionals in the community. So the organization has been filling gaps in healthcare, providing continued rehabilitation and support at affordable rates. Plus, we offer scholarship funding for those in need of financial support. We partner with other organizations to provide services and have more reach, such as we're doing tonight with Kalynn and with Jackie helping us. And we have some upcoming events. We have a holiday art show. It's free, open to the public. Anybody can come by. It's December 7th, and it's from 12 to 3. We're going to have live music, yummy treats. We're going to have art that is created by our participants in our art programs. We'll also have other types of art and crafts for people for holiday gifts. It's really fun. So that's something that you can come by on December 7th, 12 to 3. And I think Deborah's putting a link in the chat. So you have that as well. There it is. It's already there. And then we also have a caregiver support group coming up this Saturday, 10:30 to 12. It's the peer caregiver support group that's led by caregivers who have been caring for someone who has had an injury, and that's on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, you can go to our website and it's drop-in. You don't have to register. You just can show up at shurigcenter.org. And we also have a professional-led caregiver support group. I believe it's on the 23rd of November, Saturday, 10:30 to 12. It's on Zoom, and Adrienne Opet, a speech therapist, is going to be facilitating that group and answering your questions. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Kalynn Stewart, and she'll tell you more about herself and her experience, and just to share, she's been working with us for, I think, about 10 years now. And it's been quite a pleasure to have Kalynn as part of our Shurig team. So I'm excited to learn from you tonight, Kalynn.
Excellent. Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, Jackie. Awesome. Can you guys all hear me okay? Okay. So yeah, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking tonight with you guys all about speech therapy. It's all about communication. So I do welcome if you have questions along the way, feel free to type those in the chat. Happy to answer them as they come along, or you can wait till the end as well. So I'll just give you a little brief history of my experience. It all started when I was in high school as a respite worker. And that's actually relieving caregivers from their loved ones that are working with disabilities. And I had so much fun taking them out into the community and then specialized in working with individuals with multiple sclerosis, which is actually working more with speech impediments. So from there, I knew I wanted to become a speech therapist. I just found it really fascinating to kind of realize, how can I help them with how they need to communicate. I was doing my undergrad at the time in Canada, where I grew up, and specialized or majored in psychology, and then came out to San Francisco for graduate school. So from there, I always knew I wanted to work in the hospitals. My family has a real medical background, and I always found it really fascinating. So had the opportunity to start working in the internship at CPMC. And from there, I went to Davies, and which actually was where I did my fellowship. And then that's kind of dating myself because I think that was in 1997. And then from there, I had the opportunity to work in the hospital with all different kinds of disabilities. They've really ranged from, working in the ER to rehabilitation. And then I came over to Marin, where, again, I worked more in the home. And then I worked actually with over here in the community setting. So I found that really rewarding, working more with, people at the Shrike Center teaching classes and then helping them to rehabilitate into the community. So from there, I've also had the opportunity to work in outpatient. And with outpatient, I've had the opportunity to kind of, see all different individuals again and just kind of see, how I can help them rehab into the community. So from there, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about speech therapy and what we do. Okay, so as you can see, speech therapists, we assess all different kinds of areas. And I'm just going to talk really a bit about what the adults do as a speech therapist, specializing with brain injury and strokes. So as you can see, expressive language, I'll go into a little more detail, looks at the speaking and the writing of expressing and speaking, talks about, different ways people can communicate. And we will see this, especially in working with people with aphasia. So many of your loved ones, have troubles with maybe saying, words at the word level, or maybe even just saying sounds. Or they could have troubles even just drawing a picture or writing a word or even a little bit more than a word. So it's very important to note, though, that aphasia does not affect the intelligence. So here we need to know that they usually have coherent thoughts and meaningful ideas to share, but they have troubles getting the words out. So what's really important here is just to know that, it's the breakdown of the language. A lot of people might think they have dementia or troubles with their memory, and they could have a little bit of troubles in some other areas, but for the most part, it's all language based. So looking at some of these strategies, very important to ask the speech therapist working with your loved one, how can I work with them and help them the best? But I'll just provide some simple strategies that are helpful. Allow enough time to communicate and do not complete their thoughts. I can say that, teaching the aphasia group, this is probably one of the biggest complaints. People want to help and they want to, finish the thoughts, thinking that they're going to help them, when in reality, you're actually, interrupting their thoughts. So the best thing you can do is kind of just sit back and allow them to express what they can. Providing 2 or 3 choices. This can be really helpful if someone can't, express at the word level. So they might just be able to use a finger. You can give them 2 choices, like 1 or 2. Do you want juice or do you want coffee? Then they can kind of give you a choice, or if they can say it, they can say it to you. Encouraging gestures, simple words, very important to always express, using a lot of nonverbal, because that allows a lot of communication just as much as word finding, describing the word. So for example, if you're trying to say ball, you say, it's round or it bounces. So trying to describe and give them as much different kinds of help with finding the word, and eventually it comes after describing. Providing the first sound, that can be great if you know what they're trying to say. We don't always know what they're trying to say. But if you know, for example, they're trying to say sandwich, you could say sand and then wait for them to say, often they'll then finish and say sandwich. Communication boards, great if you have troubles like not communicating at all. There's so many great ones out there right now. And then writing again is another way to kind of encourage, some can only trace their name, or you can go into art class and it's amazing what comes out there with, the expression.
Kalynn, what is a communication board? Is that like a chalkboard or a whiteboard, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's actually, it can be just like a simple alphabet board, or you can have, some simple words on it if they can. So they can be all varied, really depending on what level they're at. Great question. So looking at receptive language, that's more the output, and actually the input of your language, and that's the ability to understand and listen to what's going on, as well as reading. Okay, so it's really important to know that that's not actually hearing, has nothing to do with hearing, but it's more like, do they understand what I'm saying? Okay, so again, many people with aphasia have that troubles with just understanding. So you might have difficulties with them following directions, answering questions, or just understanding what's being read, or difficulty, understanding a story that might be told to them. So some simple strategies we might want to use is just, before communication starts, really making sure that you are attending and you have their attention, and that, of course, there's a quiet environment. I'll be honest, people with aphasia are really sensitive to the background noise, and it can be very difficult for them to understand with all that background noise. Using the facial gestures, very important, so they understand that, what has been communicated. And again, we get about 50% of what we say just by looking at each other's mouths. So it's really important to make sure that you're able to see the person, look at them one-on-one, and then also, add any gestures so that they can help understand what you might be trying to say to them. Using pictures, simple yes/no questions, and making sure that your language is really simple. So no complex, no abstract words. Keep it as basic as you can. 1 to 2 step directions. An example would be wash your cup, or pass me the scissors. So just keeping it really basic. And then you also always want to verify that, do you understand me? Or, repeat. If I need to repeat, you might have to do that a couple times in a couple different ways. See this a lot in the aphasia group. And you can tell when people aren't understanding, and that's okay. You just repeat it a few times. And then with reading, when you're actually looking at a magazine or a newspaper with them, you can actually just ask them questions about, the title, or ask them, about a word, and see if they understand what's going on in the text. Next, we'll also look at speech production. And so speech production is actually looking at the sound, which actually kind of starts with starting off with the lungs, where air is inhaled through the trachea. And then from there, the vocal folds in the larynx operate to produce sound. So a lot of people don't realize that speech therapists also work with voice, all different kinds of voice disorders out there. And then, after a brain injury, often the facial muscles can also be weakened, the lips, the tongue, the jaw, and this can result in slurred speech. So someone with dysarthria, that's very common after a stroke. So again, just checking in with your speech therapist and seeing, what is the best thing for that person. Apraxia is another challenge where you might be able to have a hard time with sending the message from the brain to your mouth. And that's a breakdown with your speech production. So some helpful strategies here are just to, we all need to work on our posture, be in an upright position, and really work on, your breath support, your diaphragmatic breathing. So there's exercises that we will work on together for that. Just taking a deep breath and taking a large breath and talking louder. It can be really important to encourage enhance communication. Speaking with your mouth and over articulating is very important for clear communication. Okay, so especially with someone that might have dysarthria, has to do that a little bit more often. Speaking slowly. We understand each other much more when we speak slowly. Singing, it's really fascinating how people with left hemisphere damage actually are spared often in the right hemisphere. So if you sing, that can be really beneficial for someone with aphasia. Oral motor exercises, those are helpful for just like we have to work out our body. As a speech therapist, we help with those as well. Okay, so cognition. This is, an area where someone can have trouble with any of these cognitive processes here, such as memory, attention, or thinking. So communication disorders are problems with the underlying cause of a cognitive deficit. And it's not language and it's not speech. Okay, so that's what we've talked about so far. So trouble with cognition is often they are not isolated abilities. They often work together. And so a problem with one of these functions listed here can cause difficulty with, performing daily living activities, as well as communicating effectively. So looking at this nice little brain here, you could have cortical or subcortical damage to the brain after a brain injury. So what's really important to note is that, you might have an MRI done at the hospital after a concussion and, nothing might show up at all. And then people are like, why am I having this, trouble with speaking? And that's the problem, is that often the damage, isn't necessarily, seen on an MRI. So you can still have the cognitive communication deficit. About 35 to 45% of strokes actually have cognitive impairments, and that's 3 months after their stroke. So about a third of these have long-term troubles. So those are most common with damage to the right side of the brain and then the left side of the body. Okay, so a little bit opposite of someone with aphasia. Just knowing that these troubles can also be in combination with dysarthria, the slurred speech, with the apraxia, the troubles sending the message from the brain to the mouth to say something, or aphasia. So that's where the speech therapist, has a fun time kind of deciphering what is what. Looking at, for example, attention, the speech therapist will look at how do they attend to something? How long can they focus? Looking at their memory, how do they recall the facts? Looking at especially short-term memory. Insight, understanding one's own limitations and what they mean. They might know that they have to be in a wheelchair, but, they don't understand the steps that they need to do, to keep up their muscles and keeping them strong. Orientation, they know when, where, and who you are. Processing is often decreased, and they might not have the quick thinking that they once had. Or executive function is actually making a plan and acting it out. So you can be impaired in one of these areas or more. And so it's really important that the speech therapist kind of determine, where the impairments exist and how to treat them. And they can really vary in severity. You can have, someone with just a mild, simply, troubles concentrating in a loud environment, or you might have a more severe impairment where they can't communicate at all. So really important to kind of look at, where they are and get evaluated by a speech therapist. And so looking at some of the strategies that are recommended, just making sure you have your loved one's attention and before you start to communicate, and use a calendar. So you can use all different types of calendar and figure out what works for them. It could be like a daily journal. It could be actually just, a big, huge desk calendar, or some can still use their little calendar on their phone. It really just depends on where they're at. You also want to keep the items in the same location. So for example, your wallet or your keys, it's so important that, you have a home station for those for each person. Then they're used to always looking in the same place and not spending so much time looking for those items. Frequent reminders, we can all use those. Often writing those down can be helpful. Maybe even having a whiteboard, in the kitchen, very helpful. And, discussing their appointments with them, keeping daily to-do lists, and really keeping the schedule really scheduled for them and structured so they kind of know what comes next usually. And then they know where to look when there's a change in schedule. So they could have like phone alarms or email reminders. It's really kind of figuring out what works best for your loved one. And then mindfulness meditation can be helpful for all of us. So that really helps with attention and concentration, which is so important for, completing daily tasks and underlie successful memory. So there's so many great apps out there. And I will say, some people like to do yoga or Tai Chi, so that's a great way to incorporate it. But really helps to minimize distracting thoughts or intrusive emotions and just helping them to refocus their attention. So mindfulness and meditation is so important. Okay, and the last area I'll talk about that we specialize in looking at with adults, for speech pathology is pragmatics. And this is also known as social communication skills. So this is just the ability to, appropriately use language in social situations. And it's how you navigate the world, really. So when an injury has occurred in the brain, it's not uncommon for someone to have, a change in behavior. They may be more emotional. They may use language differently, and they may generally have a change in a personality. So it really involves, knowing what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. So some recommendations to help modifying their behavior, helping them to encourage to converse in turn taking and just not interrupting or frequently changing the topics, helping them come back, keeping the same topic that you're talking about and helping them, go back to the previous topic to help with topic maintenance. Making sure that you're acceptable and appropriate language and there's no profanities. We'll be honest, after a stroke or brain injury that people do get frustrated and might say more things than they did before. Just don't provide attention to this behavior. Instead, change the subject matter. Encourage that eye contact during conversation. And this really helps to gauge the reactions of the person we're talking to and lets them know that we're interested in what they have to say. And then empathy is really the ability to see things from another perspective and feel their emotions. And so putting yourself in another person's shoes might lead you to act more with compassion. So this can really be used by modeling the behavior around your loved one. Okay, so the way that these strategies, I like to use them in the community are at the Schrig Center, we have aphasia communication groups. And I will say that the great thing about, going into the community and having other people with, aphasia in the same group together is that you're really working on engaging in conversations in the real world. Some of them I see on an individual basis or they see other therapists and then they come together and they converse in the real world. And what's really great is that you see these relationships that, start right now, they're online. They have been in person before. And I will be honest that, in a class online, they actually meet each other and they really have these great connections. And then when they go to the Schrig Center for art class or for yoga class, they actually expand those interactions. So it's a great way for them to converse more in the community. Social participation with all different kinds of partners. I know we have different ways that I have them ask each other questions. And what's great about that is then they learn how to converse with other people, just like we do in the real world. They start to practice, learning different strategies. And I will say what's interesting is, I might start by giving them, for example, the initial cue and saying, look at my mouth and say this. And then I see them helping each other out, doing the same strategy. And what's really cool is that they're learning, these strategies by, practicing with each other and they're receiving the support from peers. So I'll be honest, the biggest, takeaway from these aphasia groups is learning from each other. And, often the caregivers might be present and it's amazing what they can learn from each other. Someone might be having a down day and they can kind of realize that and they lift each other up. So it works on improving those connections. A lot of them become friends outside of class. They're taking each other to the Schrig class for their classes, or they're doing things and seeing them in their homes outside, helping them. And it's really great to see that community that's fostering. And these different classes are available for all different levels of aphasia. Then the CogSmart class, and this is actually a great class for all of us, just on working on basic organizational skills. And this actually helps, just with learning and practicing, cognitive strategies. Again, it's a small group of usually 4 to 6 people and really helping to support, getting them back to school, work, social or daily living goals, and really working on real world applications. Cognitive strategies are, all different types are trialed. And what's really helpful is they might come to the class working on different goals, but they're able to kind of help each other out again. And by practicing, they're helping to, stop some habits that are very important. So it's really a fun way to learn new strategies. And then again, tension reduction techniques, something we all need to work on. We're trying to introduce a new tension reduction technique from abdominal breathing to visualization, progressive muscle relaxation. So by the end, they're learning quite a few. Okay, any questions so far?
So if anybody has, if Marcia has a question, you can unmute. And if anybody else who's listening as a webinar, you can type your question in the Q&A or in the chat as Kalynn is continuing. And one of the things that I was struck by, Kalynn, is you've really talked about the different areas of where aphasia and challenges with speech can come into play. So the expressive, receptive, the pragmatic, which is really helpful to hear because that's the type of communication we're all doing all the time. And also really touching on the cognitive aspects. So it may be that somebody doesn't have as much of a speech challenge, either expressive or receptive, but they're having cognitive challenges. And you work with that as well. So you mentioned concussion and how somebody may have side effects of a concussion, and you as a speech therapist can be very helpful with that, even though their speech may seem okay. So I just think that's really a wonderful thing that not everybody realizes that about speech therapy.
I get that question all the time. People are like, why am I seeing you? Or why was I referred to you for a memory issue or problem solving or, executive functioning, attention, yeah, it's because we actually help with the processes from the brain that come from here out to communication. So you're right, Patricia. It is kind of fascinating, all the different areas we work on. I'm still
Yeah,
learning.
I I I live in the scene and Zurich, and I go there and aphasia everywhere. Go. I talk to roommates there and students there, teachers. To sometimes a lot of information to get to, and sometimes whoa, get it out. So it's good to understand that because I had to try to talk too much and no quiet because I have to be quiet. That's it. Thank you for doing that, Kalynn.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Marcia. So, and what I hear you're saying is that you practice your communication, then you need to go home and take breaks and, kind of, absorb everything that you've done during the day. And so, yeah, that's what's, very important with the brain imaging. We'll talk more about is like the rest and so important for the brain.
Oh, that's really, I'm so glad you brought that up, Marcia. And I think it's, I just been visiting a friend of mine who had a stroke. And one of the things that's happening is she's able to share that she's overwhelmed. That if there's too much talking or there's too much stimulus coming from outside of the room where she's receiving care, or too much light, or the temp, everything can be overwhelming and you don't realize what's too much. And sometimes a person can't always tell you. So that's really helpful for, I think, caregivers to recognize and start to see, well, when is somebody on overload?
Sometimes to do that, lights going down, but sometimes no, like to see the pictures, what painting, what doing that's okay, but stimulus outside of you, around you, too much. So um, I both on the quiet on the in the ear, quiet there.
Yeah. So
I
Marcia,
video I don't know music sometimes, but sometimes quiet. I hear you, but it's not blah, 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 blah. Why there? Why there?
Yeah, and I
Understand
remember,
that?
yeah, I can help Marcia just in like reiterating when I first met you, you were very good about just saying, I need these to kind of put in my ear so that there's times when I zone out, I just need to be able to zone out. And so someone like Marcia who loves to talk, her family couldn't understand like when she goes to a party, why is it that she's got these earphones in? Why is it that she wants to zone out? It's because her brain's on overload. So yeah, very important. And thank you for sharing that, Marcia.
It's a great way to mute the sound just enough, but not fully. Yeah. And we've had people sometimes wear sunglasses
Yeah.
or tinted glasses in the classes so that, or we'll turn
I
off overhead lights.
Yeah, light sensitive, this big thing. Lights. So sunlight is definitely me. Not definitely, but I really struggle with bright lights. So I think when it's like either I always wear a hat. I tried inside, but I found that for me, I guess the sunlight was more adverse than the lights inside. But I tried it again for a year. I mean, I think I know, but yeah, I couldn't really verbalize what was going on. But it was something. It kind of came up like you've heard you've heard of like people having strokes or any kind of brain injury being light sensitive, but it's a real thing. I, early on, I didn't couldn't say what was, but I tried it after I was reminded about it, and I thought so. It really works for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Chris and Marcia, because it just goes to show, caregivers, how sensitive they have to be to all the different senses going on. And really follow the lead of their loved one because they're not being, they're not doing this on purpose. They're often on overload in some kind of sensory capacity. So yeah, thank you for sharing, both of you. I'll just share a little bit more about, how to help these strategies in the home and in the community. So, after you leave the hospital, rehabilitation continues and it continues for a long time. What's great about neuroplasticity is the new, progress that shows that we're making connections in our brain all the time. So, there might be some hills and valleys and then some plateaus, but then you can keep on kind of, going up and down. And then as long as you're moving in the right direction, that's what we see with a brain injury. So, very important to try and encourage your loved one to kind of look into the hobbies they might be interested. I worked with someone who loved to do Tai Chi. And so, especially during COVID, when things slowed down, we were able to form a group at the park and have everyone, some of the people from the aphasia class work with an instructor that really helped them with calming their brain and doing Tai Chi. Yoga is also something, a lot of people use, and they go to the Shrike Center for that. I had another client that she liked to knit. And what was really cool was that, there's a lot of sequencing steps to knitting. And so it was amazing how much, she would start with these really simple patterns. And then by the end, she was knitting these really, complicated knitting patterns. And then she would actually give them to each person that worked with her at the hospital. So what was really special about that was she would have to write a card, and it was part of our therapy. And then she'd have to communicate and actually, go and talk, which was not easy for her with her word finding skills. So these are some really fun activities you can do. And she didn't even realize it was therapy. but it was really special to see these scarves improve and improve over time. Finding out what kind of crossword puzzles or Sudoku or, some people like to do more vocabulary or numbers. So really kind of figuring out what activities as far as games they like to do. You can have some simple word finding games with Pictionary where they're actually drawing to, more high level word finding with apples to apples. Or even Rummy Cube. That's actually sequencing numbers again, but it's actually facilitating communication while they're playing the game. So really making all these activities really functional and fun for them. Meal prep, you can be in the kitchen and just having them name, simple foods that you're making, or you can actually have them follow a recipe and then they can actually sequence the steps. So that gets a little more complicated. Again, reading or writing, you could have them, write in a journal, what are they happy for? And just have them each day write some simple positive comments. If they have troubles with writing, you could have them draw some pictures, how to convey that meaning the best they can. Then you could also look at some pictures or books and, making some, looking at, any kind of photographs that they liked in the past and kind of writing on the back, where the picture was taken. That can be very helpful for communication. And then landmarks, just have fun, go out into the community and have them, point to things that look familiar to them, or you can communicate. And, when they're tired of talking, it's okay to kind of show, express to them, different fascinating things in the community. So many different areas you can help them with. And I like this slide because, science really shows that progress is going beyond plateaus. Okay, so with neuroplasticity, it's so important that, we know that the brain and reorganization doesn't stop. And even after the initial recovery phase. And so encourage your loved one to always persist with therapy. It can get challenging, I'll be honest, and really frustrating, knowing their brain is still adapting, just kind of like what Chris and Marcia were talking about. But just knowing that you power through it. And if you're frustrated, it's okay to take a break or, try it again the next day. Setting new goals. If progress stalls, and that's normal, you might need to kind of change the focus a little bit and maybe change an activity to stimulate the different areas of the brain. And this can reignite recovery as well. Rest, as we talked about, follow your lead. If you need a break, you need a break because rehabilitation is really hard. And, encourage your loved one to recharge when burnout sets. It's really a vital part of healing. And connecting with others. So, taking classes at the Shrike Center or other places where there's support groups, where they can experience with others facing similar challenges is really a fabulous way to keep them connected in the community. So together is better. And I just would like to also introduce Chris, who is a client from the Shrike Center that has had the opportunity to participate in both the Cog Smart and the aphasia communication class.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Chris, do you want to tell us
yeah,
about
my
your
major
time?
takeaways from each class.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think probably the Cog Smart I learned, I guess the big takeaway was really systems. But actually, one thing I still use today, I use my phone to like set up, so I really lists about that. like using my phone to like set reminders, not reminders, like calendar appointments, things. So I really adapt that more for that. So that's really what I kind of, I guess, from the hip, like kind of gained from the College Smart class. I really found that it was really the part I kind of like most is the communication group. The kind of now it's called a phase communication group or something. And I think again, like it's a way that can kind of assess individuals, see where that. But the one thing I will say about this is it's really a safe place to voice your opinions or whatever or talk. And I find I grew up with I raised boys, had a wife, and all that. So, but I found like with my loved ones, they kind of expect you to be like you were. And I think it's kind of enlightening because when you go there, like, everyone gets you. So I know Mossy has been in a couple classes I've been in. And, we've all we all help each other. So you can see where people are maybe stumbling or they're, you know, again, problem solving, like maybe something as simple as it could be a visa, or I heard a really good tip on a visa. So if visa strikes you, you say, I don't know how you say that in English. I know my native tongue, but not English. So I only have one language, none or two. But I think it's kind of brilliant because you don't have to sound so like you don't know. That's really the biggest thing I think part of it is like at least my journey's been this way. Like you go from like really being not all annoying, but you kind of have done the best you can up till that point, and that stops. And it's so sudden. Like I used to be like, I still am, but I used to be like, I used to think myself as a really valuable part of society. And I guess part of the stigma with, I call it in the wild, out in public, be, because you can't speak eloquently or you can't communicate the way people assume or they think you're dumb or whatever. I don't really care. But my and people have had strokes or really any kind of brain injury. Sometimes you don't know what's happening. You don't know. It's not obvious.
Yeah.
So my thing, I can't walk. I'm in a scooter, and I can't speak very clearly. So not all, but I'm better than I was.
You're doing awesome though, Chris. And on that line, do you mind if I ask you, so what are you working on in speech therapy?
I guess probably the biggest one, I guess probably connecting the dots with people talking, because like really, really any kind of brain injury, you don't start with a beginning, middle, and end. You may go middle, beginning, and end, or middle to end, beginning. Like so, really following someone the way they speak is really hard to do because they have a unique way of getting their point across. You probably see it now, but I guess probably for me, like another big thing I'm working on is really trying to slow down and really pause between words. That's not really easy for me. But I think it's very common that you talk too fast. You have to be careful because you're probably learning something totally different because you're doing something different.
And if I can jump in there, Chris, you're having to learn new habits, which,
It
take,
helps with your neuroplasticity.
yeah. So
Well,
it's,
yes.
yeah. And then the other area, is the insight, right? You can
Yeah.
share
But
about,
too, like you see at the communication class or anyone really, um, you see where the people are and you're following them, but you're also you see how far away you are, or how close you are, or how much you not improved, like you recovered more than others. So everyone's had a different spot. So it's really hard to so some days kind of your insight is like, wow, it's a big difference between me and them. And maybe it's good, maybe you're better, maybe you're worse. But you kind of realize you have a long way to go. Or
exactly. Like initially you kind of thought that you could just get up and walk, right?
yeah,
Which is,
I still like. I mean, I'm what I guess 10 years into it, but 7 years at the Shirk Center. I lived in Oregon, but my yeah, I guess your acceptance is not there. Like again, you're walking, you were racing bikes, you're doing other things, you're raising kids and being a good husband and all that, and then it stops. It stops, like it totally changes. So you have to kind of, I guess, go back, but you kind of like you don't realize where you're at. Like I remember when I first had it, I guess I went to a swimming thing. I used to always go swimming because it helps with but I remember this guy came up to me. He's like, "How long have you had when your stroke?" And I told him like maybe 3 months or at the time, like it was very short. Um, actually, it's probably a couple of years now, but I remember thinking like that guy is so messed up. But carrying him in a wheelchair, I mean, I didn't know it. I had no idea. Like, I didn't realize how bad it was, or not how bad, where it was. I didn't realize where it was at.
so now, Chris, I have to say you really have great awareness. And can you just share a couple of areas of neuroplasticity that you're working on daily?
Quite dearly. I definitely, I found because I live alone. Really, I really can't stress the like breath support and neuro, I guess, in the meditation every day. It really helps with my focus, I think. And I don't kill and you mentioned games. I I mean for me, like my thing was like Sudoku. I love the game. Yeah, I can't play it because I'll play it for like hours. But I mean, it's probably worse thing I can do than that. But still, like the Sudoku was great. But I think it all really all of everything you do, like really going out really helps with your neuroplasticity or whatever.
Yeah. And then, Chris, what do you do daily right now, every day for 20 to 30 minutes?
Yeah, I exercise. I ride the bike, stationary bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that. I've done that for, I think can I say years? Yeah, no, I guess years
It's just coming up to 1 year.
coming up. I
Your
think
peer is reminding you.
definitely months.
Yeah.
Um,
Excellent.
it's
What
been like 20 minutes.
Fabulous.
what riding bike? The what?
Like I have a spin bike.
A stationary bike. He does that
Yeah,
as
stationary.
Okay. Sorry. Thank
yeah.
you.
And
It's
that
it's actually a spin bike. You can't let goes. But I've been doing that for like every day for like 20 minutes.
excellent. Thank you, Chris. You're such a great example of, where you've come and how far and what you're working on. And now you're even volunteering at the Shrike Center with some
Yeah,
other people in the
thank-
classes. And you said, before that you're actually learning more about yourself,
I
as
think
you're
pray too. Like the more you realize where you're at, that's really helping your insight a lot.
excellent.
Because again, at the time you don't really when you first started to have my episode, I didn't know where I was at, but I think the more you help, like with people, for example, you see how far they've come, or you realize how far away you are from them. Like they're maybe you've improved more, they improve more, or you have.
Exactly. Together, you're all learning, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
it helps both of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing
No,
your
no
experience.
problem.
Fabulous. Patricia, should I stop sharing and we can answer questions now? What would
Well,
you?
yeah, and it might be nice to leave your sharing on because it has your contact information. Um, and do you also, Kalynn, have a website?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Yes, so let's type that. Let's see, I'm gonna type it in the chat. What's your website?
Oh, that's so funny. I just put my name into Google. It is
No,
my
I
web.
can't. Don't go to
I
my
think
website.
yeah, it's just Kalynn Stewart SLP. I think it's just, yeah.
slp.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just put it in there. So because I think sometimes it's also helpful for people. So you have your email, your phone number, you have an office in San Rafael, and also being able to go and look at the website and see you have a really nicely laid out website, and so people can see what you offer and explore a little bit more and then reach out. And I think you offer consults. So if people want to reach out and um, thank you, Deborah. If people want to reach out and consult, one of the things that I think can be really helpful for caregivers often is to have a consult themselves too. So to be able to have a one-time meeting or to say, okay, here's the things I'm doing to support my loved one. What are other ideas? And then get that support too, because you brought up so many good points in your presentation about how to support your loved one. But Chris also addressed that to a degree of what he found. Chris, you shared what you found challenging in some ways when the people in your life have the expectation that you'll be able to do certain things or that you're going to be like you were before,
Yeah.
and that's really helpful, I think, for caregivers to hear. Um, and I also think that what you touched on, before we started, Chris, and we were chatting, and Chris mentioned that he's been coming here for 7 years. His injury was 10 to 11 years ago. And I think a lot of people, the doctors don't necessarily tell you this, and a lot of caregivers and survivors don't realize that you can continue to improve abilities over many, many years, and how important it is to have that community connection or to work with a professional, or in the case of what you offer here, Kalynn, both, right? So you're teaching strategies, but then that coming together as a community and forming relationships helps people, it inspires people, but helps bridge those connections in the brain, but also in their life, and helping with moods, and that, Chris, like you said, feeling that you're a contributing part of society. So that all of that is touched on in these classes, and it's really powerful. And then the CogSmart class is something that I don't know. I didn't know if our guests knew what it was. So, Kalynn, do you want to say a little bit about the CogSmart class?
Yeah, I can go back and just review what I said a little bit
Oh,
about.
you said it before, and then okay, so
Yeah,
just
yeah.
ignore me then.
No,
I'm sure
that's
they know then.
okay. Yeah. Oh, Marcia, did you have a question?
Yeah, because uh, reading is most helpful. I have to get out of my sitting sitting victimless. I was victim myself, and then I go reading about brain and neuroplasticity and where to go working brain together. So I talk to my brain. I mentalize something. Go there, go there, go there, go there, go there, and good. So I'm moving finger, move because I a lot of people don't understand that, but brain is a working brain. You help me, Kalynn. You amazing time
Yeah. Take a deep breath.
to you been there for every day in my life 7 years ago. So too much to get out of social life and be here. But it's hard to do that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I have to say both Chris and Marcia, you guys are role models because you do keep on working on your rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to see the neuroplasticity and the progress. Um, Marcia, if you don't mind me saying, when you came to the Shrink 7 years ago, you couldn't say one word that made sense.
Yeah.
And Marcia knows like 5 different languages. So all the different languages were coming out, but there was no English.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but even some of those words were nonsense words.
Yeah.
And so even your husband was confused and couldn't understand you either. But I could see through your persistence that, she could understand and she knew what she was trying to say. And then with Marcia working in the aphasia group and then some one-on-one, it was amazing how much work, you would write things down and then you were talking about what you would read. And
Yes.
that's said you would then visualize, in your brain. And
Visualize working brain. That's it.
yeah. And you've worked so hard that you're even helping others now. You became a massage therapist and even helping others at this Shrig Center with massages on your own time, just volunteering and giving back. So that's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And if I remember right, Marcia, when you first came here, were you driving or did you
No.
get, so you
No.
actually got to a point over time to be able to get back to driving and attend massage school. And so,
Yes.
and you're talking about the importance of visualization and thinking about
Without,
picturing.
yeah, my when I was paralyzed on left brain hair, the foot every time go paralyzed because stroke or aneurysm, whatever. But
Aneurysm.
it's no good, but now no good. I can't do that yet.
Yeah. And now, I mean, you hike miles.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, it's really important that people keep that hope and that belief in what they'll be able to do. And I know, Chris, you were sharing earlier how far you've come since the stroke first happened.
Yeah, I mean, your first time, when it first happened, because it happened again so suddenly.
Yes.
That's the hard part. It's so sudden. You don't see. It's hard to. And I think you spend like a couple of years, like maybe kind of trying to figure out where you're at. Then maybe you do. And yeah, I think you definitely got to stick with that because if you don't, you don't progress as
Yeah,
far.
yeah. We do have a question from one of the attendees. So they asked if Marcia can share some of the books that you read, because I think you were mentioning that you were reading and focusing
Oh, brains, brains. Talk about brains.
about books
Oh,
about brains.
yes.
Do you have any on the shelf there you can show us?
I don't know here, but I've seen. Oh,
Kalynn, have you found any books that are helpful?
Oh, yeah, lots of books. I can just say, um, well, mine are mostly textbooks, but I
But for people to read that
yeah,
are
there's, just,
caregivers or people.
I have
a
brain plasticity.
magazine. Um, um, when I go to talk about brains, so master your brains, computer, and sorry, you.
Okay, can you maybe hold it a little closer? I don't know if that'll work, but okay, master. Okay, and down a little bit. Master your brain. Neuroscience. Neuroscience is for personal development.
Yes, and it's beautiful.
And that's a book.
And on the application on this guy here
It's
talk
an
about
app on the phone.
yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to type it into an answer here. Um,
The brain. I I have a box, all the brain sitting there. I gave out some magazines because people needed that, and on the brains is I can find it here. I don't know what it is, but sometimes here. And in the box, magazines of brains, what is working, why you doing that, and
okay, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so you've been looking at some neuroscience,
yes,
and sometimes, in Time magazine, or there are magazines that will have stories about the brain and learning about.
no, no, I'll wait a minute, I'll go get it.
Yeah, and I can just share with you, my book is, just called Brain Plasticity and Behavior. So you can find all different types if you just even go on YouTube, and also just like put in simple, neuroplasticity. And I feel like that's a great way, just do a short 5 minute about brain plasticity and neuroplasticity, and that really gives you a lot of great information.
Okay, great. So I think that was the question, and I think you've been answering things along the way. So I think what we can do, Jackie, is there anything you wanted to add from what you've heard tonight from an OT perspective, or?
Yeah, I mean, Kalynn, that was amazing. I love how you broke down each aspect of speech therapy, so people really know when to contact you. I mean, if anything, just contact you, right? And then you can decide if
Yeah.
but one of the things that I was thinking of as you were sharing, some of the techniques that you mentioned for cognitive recovery, because OTs also work in that realm, inside the online community that you'll all have free access to, there are PDF handouts that I've put up that are morning routine checklists and nighttime routine checklists, things that you can really just print out at home. And what I like to tell my clients is that you can put them inside um, inside like a plastic cover and then just use marker or dry erase marker on the outside and then wipe it down each day. So each morning you can wake up and complete check off your checklist, write the date and the day of the week, and then just erase it and start fresh the next day. So inside the online community, there are morning care routine checklists, nighttime checklists, that you can print out and use at home.
I forgot. I the books, I don't know where it is, but
Well, you didn't
too
know you were
much.
going to be asked for that, so that's okay. At least we got a couple
No,
out.
I
Yeah.
know that I have books around here, but every time today is a big day to me because I have 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and now here, and I go to spiritual meeting today after that.
Yes, so
So
you've had a busy day.
yes,
Yeah, and the fatigue can, yeah.
yes.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. I really want to, thank you, Kalynn, for your time and sharing your expertise and all that you do with the Shurig Center and our community here. As you've got two people here, Marcia and Chris, who have very beautifully spoken to the benefit of what you offer and the community that comes together through our services. So really you're changing lives and making people feel more connected to each other and to the community, like Chris referenced earlier in Marcia. So you mean a lot to us, and we just want to thank you so much for taking this time. And I'm very excited it's recorded so that there could be dozens, if not hundreds of people who see this over time on our website. So, and then I want to just share a reminder that Jackie, thank you again for being here and doing this with us. And there is a link in the chat to join her holistic life skills community and website and learn so much more there. Also, just a reminder, we have our art show on December 7th. And Kalynn Stewart's website is here. Her information's on the screen. And if you just keep an eye out for a survey that's going to come to our attendees to share feedback on how this was for them and what other speakers you'd like to learn and hear from. So
I remember to picture for you when I
okay.
go to books about. I'll
Okay,
send it to
great.
you.
Great. And so you'll
Okay?
send us some of the pictures of your books and we can share that over email with people
Yes.
who attended tonight. And just also we have a caregiver support group this weekend, Saturday from 10:30 to 12. So if anybody's interested in that. All right, you guys, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure to see you all on screen, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in person soon.
Thank you, Kalynn.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
thank you,
you.
Deborah.
Take care,
Oz,
everyone.
our
Take
wizard.
care.
All right, have a good night, you guys.
Bye bye.
Rest.
I
Good night.